Some of the worst painful deaths in war, y'all. Like, bro, why is this? Some of the worst painful deaths in war. Let's get into it.
These are some of the worst and most brutal ways that people have died in wars. And up first is the Bataan Death March, where 76,000 war prisoners were forced to march nearly 70 miles on foot in horrible, disgusting conditions. And if they refused, they were met with an instant, painful death. April 9th, 1942. It's the middle of World War II, and a 3-month-long battle has finally concluded in the Bataan Peninsula in the Philippines. But whoa. First, let me tell you a...
Hey, yo, what the fuck? This nigga got the double channel dome or something? With the box head? This is not the good build. This is not the build, bro. This is not a build. Not a build. How? I got that Peter Griffin action. I know that shit wasn't funny. No need to inform me. I know I'm not funny, guys. But why that nigga got that finger up? Point Dexter head.
A little bit about this battle. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941, the Japanese immediately invaded the Philippines in an attempt to seize the country. This area was a perfect spot for the Japanese to control.
What is this nigga doing over here? What is he doing over here? Like, a lot of motion over there. Must be a lot of animation. This is why I don't animate.
The rest of Southeast Asia, giving them a geographical advantage in the ongoing war. And at this point in time, the Philippines was a territory of the United States of America. For my little boxes that didn't know that all.
An ad. I hate those, don't you? See, this is why you should watch my videos, so I can pay for not ads. Feel me?
The world's already. So, when the 43,000...
I missed out. That was the world's first ever pool cleaning person thing.
Japanese soldiers invaded the island of Luzon. About 150...
Shout out to Klondike Reese's. Shit hit. Now all the fucking chocolate going everywhere.
50,000 Filipino and American troops were set to defend the island from the attack. I mean, it seems like pretty good odds, right? 150,000 versus like 40,000. But unfortunately, these troops stood no chance against the Japanese. Most of the Filipino and American soldiers were untrained, ill-equipped, and had barely any war experience. So the Japanese quickly overturned these weak defenses on the battlefield. With no other options or...
Yes, it wobble because I have a fucking... excuse my language. Because I have a phone. This is why you should subscribe, like, comment. Oh, I did get one comment. Let me go to it. Hold on, it'll probably exit the video. Let me go to it. I'll just pop it up on the screen right here. This guy. I'll say your name later at the end of the video. But thank you. Thank you, bro. I love your support. I love you, man. I just needed a shout out for you because you're the first comment I've ever had on my videos. And thank you, bro, because I honestly don't feel like doing this. But now that I know people actually watch my videos, thank you. Thank you. I just had to show support, yo, because that guy, I'm not going to lie, phenomenal. Go follow him. When he makes the first YouTube video, I'm going to do a reaction on that. That's all I had to say. But like, subscribe, because as you can see, my setup's horrible. This is a laptop I have right now with the phone that's recording me. And yes, I am 14. 14, man. Nobody asked, but I'm 14. That's how old I am.
Prior planning, the Filipinos and Americans were forced to withdraw their remaining troops to a jungle fort in the Bataan Peninsula. This very retreat would mark the start of the Battle of Bataan. That began in early January of 1942. Even though the soldiers were exhausted, riddled with diseases, surviving on...
I would not be slipping on those flies. Yeah. Why don't y'all tell me I have white stuff in my face? Shit. Yo, man.
on half rations of food and water, and living in terrible, humid conditions, they managed to hold off the fierce Japanese soldiers for about 3 whole months. Every day they fought hard, refusing to
Why that nigga face built like that? Stop.
give up the Philippines so easily. And honestly, it was pretty impressive, even though they lost. Yeah, the Philippine and American armies were forced to surrender to the Japanese on April 9th, 1942. They laid down their weapons, put their hands in the air, and surrendered. With this act, they officially became prisoners of war, which they will soon learn would be a terrible, awful decision. Most of the prisoners were rounded up in the town of Maryvales in Bataan. And from here, the Japanese decided to take these prisoners to Camp O'Donnell, a United States military base that the Japanese planned to use as a prisoner of war camp. However, there was a small problem. Camp O'Donnell was pretty far away, well over 70 miles away to be exact. And the Japanese were gonna make damn sure that their prisoners would walk there on foot for the majority of the trip. Hence the name, everyone, the Bataan Death March. So the 76,000 prisoners began their trip to Camp O'Donnell from Maryvales. These men are already exhausted and wounded, and now they have to travel for miles on foot. They hadn't eaten a full meal in months. They were rationing for the entirety of the battle, and they were suffering from malnutrition. To make it even worse, the Japanese barely fed them. And when they did get to eat, it was usually tiny portions of rice or watery soup. And if you ever asked the Japanese for more food, you would be shot to death with no hesitation. The same thing.
Oh, hell no, Swam. So them big backs, them biggies, you're dead, nigga. If you're a big back watching my video, you're dead, nigga. You dead, nigga. You dead, nigga.
Applied for water. Walking for 25 miles per day under direct sunlight would obviously make someone or anyone thirsty. But don't even think about asking for water, because if you did, again, you would be immediately.
So if I breathe the wrong way, I'm getting shot. Fucking shit, man. I wanna take that, man. I'll take that. I'll take that. I'd rather die than ever work for a fucking Japanese. I'm just playing. No racism. Getting shot for breathing the wrong way is kind of crazy.
Executed. The Japanese really showed no mercy for these war prisoners, and sometimes they even enjoyed it. They would intentionally deprive their prisoners of water, placing the severely dehydrated men directly in the sight of a puddle or a well. But when the desperate prisoners reached for the water, they would shoot.
Damn, that nigga got shake the fuck up.
Death. If
Now hold up.
water, they
Have mercy on his soul. Have mercy on his soul. Heavenly. Cause for some reason, every time I wear this shirt, everybody tries to wear my shirt. So this says Heavenly, and the back says Heavenly too. Damn. Because people be asking that. And that'd be so annoying sometimes.
They would shoot or bayonet the prisoners to death. If a prisoner couldn't keep up with the pace, executed. If a prisoner collapsed from exhaustion, executed. If a prisoner was a little bit too tired and asked for rest, executed. If a prisoner tried to escape, beheaded. Sometimes the Japanese would even bury the prisoners alive if they couldn't get up in the morning, or keep up with the steady pace of 25 miles a day. Many of the prisoners even contracted various diseases throughout the march. Without a lot of bathroom breaks, they were forced to go in their pants, covering their openly wounded legs in number 1 and number 2, which obviously leads to some
urine.
Crazy infections and diseases like dysentery. The Japanese brutalized these prisoners throughout the entire march. They slapped, they hit, they sometimes stabbed the prisoners for most like.
Are you tired of these ads? I am too, man. Follow me, you know, so I can pay for this. You feel me? fuck my big back sister fucking walking like that for it? Hell no. My big back ass sister.
Absolutely no reason at all. Prisoners who even slightly disobeyed an order were immediately beaten or stabbed to death. And this happened quite frequently considering, you know, they speak different languages. But nope, no mercy would be shown by the Japanese. At some point during the trip, they all arrived at San Fernando, which was a railhead that would be used to transport the prisoners a few miles by train. And you're probably thinking, finally, these guys can catch a damn break. Whew, they won't have to walk anymore. And while it's correct that they would have a break from walking, this was definitely not a good break. Over 100 prisoners were forced into each train boxcar that was only meant for 40 people. It is sweltering hot inside the boxcars. There was no ventilation at all, meaning there was barely any oxygen in it either. There was no room at all. All of the men inside had to stand. They physically could not sit down, which means men who collapsed or died from heat exhaustion literally could not fall to the ground. Their dead bodies would rest on the standing men beside them. This ride had no stops. For at least 5 hours, these men were consistently stuck in the boxcars until they reached their final destination, the town of Capas. And from Capas, the remaining prisoners still had about 8 miles to walk before reaching Camp O'Donnell. But finally, the men reached Camp O'Donnell. And although it was a huge sense of relief for them, giving them a chance to actually sit down and rest their legs, their suffering was far from over. From April until October of 1942, the prisoners would be held captive at prisoner of war camps like Camp O'Donnell. They continued to live in terrible, inhumane conditions at the camps. They were hardly fed and their diseases were left untreated, with thousands of men dying from starvation.
I'm not surprised.
And sicknesses. And fun fact, but not really a fun fact at all, the United States kept these atrocities of the Death March hidden from the American people until 1944. A whole 2 years after the incident, but why exactly? While releasing the brutal details of what the American soldiers went through during the march, gave the Americans a reason to
that motherfucker smiling?
Whole 2 years after the incident, but why exactly? While releasing the brutal details of what the American...
Is he smiling, nigga? Is he smiling? Ain't no way. Ain't no way. He went through all that and still smiling after all that. Ain't no way, twin.
Soldiers went through during the march gave the Americans a reason to resent the Japanese even more. Now I think some of you know where I'm going with this. Basically, it made the American people mad enough at the Japanese to gain their support in the final acts of the war, dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Next up is the Unit 731's human experiments, where the Japanese committed some of the most vile, inhumane, and deadly experiments on human test subjects. It's the late 1930s, and Japan is currently going through the Second Sino-Japanese War, a war between the Republic of China and the Empire of Japan. Ladies and boxheads, I won't bore you and get into the details too much, but basically the Chinese and Japanese troops exchanged fire on the bridge, got even more pissed at each other, and then officially started their war. While these wars were being fought, the Japanese were operating a top-secret facility where they did some pretty messed up stuff. Unit 731 was the name of the facility in which they orchestrated these terrible deaths. It was located in Manchuria, China, which at the time belonged to the Empire of Japan. To the outsiders, the facility was labeled Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. I mean, if I saw that, yeah, it would seem pretty normal. In the unit, they kept Chinese prisoners of war and even innocent civilians as test subjects. The Japanese scientists and crew who worked there even referred to these people as logs, rather than human beings. Yeah, if you were held captive here, you weren't even considered a human, you had no name, no identity, you were completely stripped of your humanity. I guess it made the crew and all these evil, sick people feel better about what they were doing to these people. They took these test subjects into laboratories and did some pretty messed up stuff you'll hear all.
Nigga, I'm tired of these fucking ads, I'm not gonna lie to you. Damn, I didn't even think it was that bad, dog. Shut.
all day. They performed vivisections on these people, which means they operated on them while they were alive and without any anesthesia. They typically did this after injecting people with literal diseases just to see how their body would react. Organs were removed from their bodies and sometimes reattached, literally just to see what would happen. Prisoners even had their limbs amputated so that they could study blood loss. And guys, they even admitted to performing a vivisection on a pregnant woman. Again, these poor people were alive and under no anesthesia while all of this was happening. Another one of their messed up...
They didn't even get to have a human life, bruh. Nigga came out the womb. Nigga came out the womb as an experiment. Damn.
Studies was frostbite testing, where they would take the test subjects outside and dip one of their body parts in freezing cold water. Once the limb was completely frozen, they would sometimes whack it with a stick to chip away the ice, and then perform more procedures and tests on the frozen wound. Or guys, they would pour boiling hot water directly onto the frozen limb. And get this, they even performed variations of these tests on children and even a 3-day-old baby. I won't get into details on that one, but oh my lord. I mean, there's more. Prisoners were tied to stakes as they threw and exploded grenades on them. They were buried alive with a flamethrower, threw shrapnel bombs, or stabbed them to death with bayonets or knives. Oh, and if you didn't think it got any worse, they did.
What is that? What kind of experiment are you doing, dog? What kind of experiment needs to be done to do that? Why do you need to throw grenades on them? Nigga, they will die. Okay, you guys are stupid, but they love what they doing. I'm not gonna lie, they do it for the love of the game.
Deprived subjects of food and water just to see the active effects of starvation and to see how long it would take them to die. Subjects were completely drained of their blood to study blood loss, and some of them were then injected with seawater or animal blood, most frequently horse blood. They were hung upside down until they died, electrocuted, crushed with heavy objects, buried alive. I could literally go on forever. But that isn't even close to all that they did. Inside the walls of Unit 731 wasn't the only place they conducted these inhumane experiments. These sick people used entire cities as test subjects. No, seriously, let me explain. In the laboratories of 731, they bred disease-infected fleas. Like fleas that were infected by the goddamn bubonic plague. Then they filled some airplanes up with these infected fleas and dropped them onto Chinese cities below, letting them spread the disease across thousands and thousands of people. Chinese cities like Ningbo and Chengde in the Hunan province were affected by this. And like you would expect, tens of thousands of people contracted the disease and its horrible symptoms, and eventually passed away after days and days of suffering. The Japanese even contaminated cities' water supplies with the disease. In the city of Nanjing, they spread typhoid and paratyphoid germs into the wells and marshes of the city. And not only that, they infused the diseases into some of their foods. Needless to say, an epidemic of disease broke out in the city, which let the Japanese scientists at Unit 731 know that it worked. And at this point, you're probably wondering, why did they even need to do all of this testing? What was the point of all this? Well, ladies and boxheads, for science, of course. Most of the experiments conducted at Unit 731 were held simply because of the Japanese's scientific curiosity, which also was a way for the crew to justify carrying out these horrible experiments. Another reason for their testing was...
Yeah, niggas, I would have surpassed that, right? I would have went through all that. When came the next Superman for
because of the wars they were in. You know, the Second Sino-Japanese War and World War II, remember? Well, the Japanese wanted to find a way to eliminate their enemies without sacrificing too many of their troops. And what better way to eliminate them than spreading deadly, painful diseases among them and their innocent populations? Gosh. The diseases would do all the dirty work for them, killing enemies off without their troops even having to lift a finger. In total, their biological warfare killed at least 400,000 people, along with the estimated 3,000 people who died from the experiments inside Unit 731. Not to mention, they killed even more of the prisoners as a way of destroying evidence at the end of World War II. Oh, no. You heard me right. When World War II was coming to...
My big back ass sister.
to an end in 1945. They knew they would be in big trouble if people found out about Unit 731. So, as a precaution, they executed every single remaining prisoner within the walls of the compound. Every single one of them. There was not one single documented survivor from the start of the experiments all the way until the prisoners' executions at the end. Not one. These horrible war crimes were discovered by the United States just a few months later. Basically, the US had a suspicion that something funky was going on with the Japanese. And when they investigated, the Japanese refused to tell them anything. That was until the US threatened to bring in the big scary Soviets to help the US investigate and prosecute the Japanese. Then they folded like a damn lawn chair and confessed to everything that went on inside the compound.
Let me show you how to block this ad. First, you're gonna click on this video, then you're gonna...
Nigga, you're the ad.
But not before striking a deal with the US that granted everyone involved in the experiments full immunity. Yep, you heard me correctly. No one was ever punished by the US. Not even the ruthless dictator of Unit 731, who was pretty much the brains behind this whole operation. He was never charged for war crimes and got to live his life for many years after until his death at age 67. Seems really, really unfair to me. Next up is the Andersonville prison, where thousands...
Like they say, life isn't fair. Let me stop.
Thousands of American war prisoners were kept in horrible conditions by other American soldiers. Yep, ladies and boxheads, we're bringing this one back to the American Civil War. It's the 1860s and the war between the Confederacy and the Union is in full swing. The Confederacy, or the South, was fighting to expand slavery into the western United States. Meanwhile, the Union, which was mostly made up of northern states, was opposed to the expansion of slavery. These guys were led by none other than the 16th President Abraham Lincoln. And spoiler alert, but the Union wins the war in 1865 and slavery becomes outlawed in all of the US. Thank you, Big Abe. Anyways, in 1864, the war had already been going on for about 3 years, but 1864 also marks the year that the Andersonville prison was created in Georgia. It was a Confederate prison where they would bring captured Union soldiers and force them to live there as prisoners. The only issue was how unbelievably awful the conditions were at the camp. Yeah, I mean, it was really bad. It was incredibly overcrowded and the living conditions were absolutely filthy. The only source of drinking water for the camp was a nearby creek that ran through the prison. And let me tell you something about this creek. It was also used as a toilet. So the creek was always full of urine and fecal matter. Yeah, they had to drink from this. Needless to say, disease spread like crazy throughout the prison. Many of the prisoners contracted dysentery and typhoid as a result. The food for the prisoners were almost non-existent. Within the small portions that they were fed, it was almost always rotten or hardly edible. Okay guys, get this. Each week they were only fed 4 tablespoons of rice and cornbread made from ground corn cobs. No, not each day. Each week 4 tablespoons of rice. So the Union prisoners severely suffered from starvation, and many died as a result. Many also contracted scurvy from their terrible diets. The clothing situation was not much better either. Prisoners did not gain a new set of clothes no matter how long they were in the camp. Their clothing, if they had any at all, was often falling to pieces. Guys, it was so bad that many of them had to steal clothing from the dead bodies around the camp just to stay warm. And very rarely did any of these prisoners have shoes or even a jacket. They didn't even have a real shelter, most crowded together under makeshift tents. And what if a prisoner tried to escape? I mean, can you blame them? I would escape the hell too. Well, they were immediately shot. There was something called the deadline. This was a fence that lined the 15-foot walls from the inside. If a prisoner were to touch the deadline, guards were given the order, shoot to kill. Prisoners touched the deadline by accident? No mercy was shown, they were shot immediately. Some prisoners even used the deadline as an easy way to end things. They would purposely touch the fence and then shot by the guards. The Confederates wanted to make sure that no one would be escaping Andersonville. However, they did offer the Union prisoners their freedom under one condition: sworn allegiance to the Confederacy and be home free with some money in your pocket. They would be let out of the prison, able to have a nice meal, put on some clothes, and even be able to sleep in a real bed. And guys, I'm no better man. I might have just taken this deal, but these guys were loyal. They weren't about to switch up on the Union after fighting so hard for them during this war. Most, and by most I mean nearly all, decided to keep their honor and stay loyal to the United States. By the time the Civil War was coming to an end, so was the Anderson prison. It was shut down in April of 1865. Out of the 45,000 prisoners that stayed at the prison, around 13,000 of them died. And while the official numbers are unknown, it's estimated that most of these men died from dysentery, typhoid fever, scurvy, and malnutrition. The death rate at this camp even reached as high as 100 deaths per day. That's pretty crazy if you think about it. So all of this poses the question, who is in charge of the prison and were they punished? Meet Captain
I can't even get 100 views per day. Damn. I think about that one. But yeah, I can't even get 100 followers or subscribers. This is crazy works, guys. My goal by the end of this year, or by the end of the year,
Henry
is on 500 subscribers. Please, guys. Please, man. Please. Only got 2 more subscribers. It's 100, man. That's all I'm asking for. 100 subscribers. 500 subscribers. My part. Let me put it on the screen. 500 subscribers. That's the last edit I'm gonna do, bro. Cause the edits I gotta do on this video is gonna be crazy.
Worse. A Confederate Army officer and commander of the Andersonville prison. Even though Henry claimed he tried to make conditions better for the prisoners, no one was buying it. He was found guilty of committing war crimes and, well, sentenced to death. He was hung on November 10th, 1865. Just a few months after the prison's closing, and ladies and boxheads, honestly, I might just call that karma. Now, this video covered the most painful deaths in war, but if you want to hear about even more painful deaths, click this video right here where I talk about the most painful cave deaths ever. Seriously, you guys gotta let me know. What was more painful, these war deaths or these cave deaths? Because honestly, I made both these videos and I still don't really know.
I might just do the cave deaths next for the next video. I'm not gonna lie. I might. Maybe. Y'all say in comments if I should. I know y'all don't type in comments, but if you do type in comments, please just say in comments if I should cave deaths for the next one. Or if not, send me one or I'll just choose one. But that'll wrap it up for this video, guys. Tell me which one y'all thought was the worst death, because to be honest, the death march was probably the worst one to me, but I'm not gonna lie. The march, walking that far is kind of crazy enough, and just collapsing and all that stuff just for walking that far, because that's not even be humanly possible for real. But that's just crazy to me. It's crazy how we want to do a war with Japan, but they have way more, like, I'm not even going to get into political stuff, but thank you for watching my video, and this is going to be a long-ass video, man. So this might drop, but today is Monday. Yeah, this might drop Wednesday, guys, because, damn. But that'll wrap it up for this video. Like, share, subscribe, and I'm out this bit. Y'all feel me? And remember, drink Kool-Aid.